Hi there, my name is Pete Gallagher. I'm a freelance IoT consultant for my company PJG Creations. I'm going to show you today how you can get started with IoT with nothing but your laptop. So the first screen I've started at here is something called MakeCode by Microsoft. This is simulating a device called the BBC Microbit, which was envisioned mainly to be able to get children and young adults into coding. But it's a great way to start your IoT journey because it allows you to be able to play with IoT tech at a really low price point. What we can see on the screen here on the left-hand side is a simulated microbit, and this thing's got a couple of buttons and some LEDs and a bunch of pins at the bottom, and we can play with that to our heart's content. What's great is we can program this thing using blocks, similar to something like Scratch, if you've ever seen that, rather than having to dive deeper into another language. So this helps break down those barriers. With something like this, I can drag blocks on there and interact with my microbit. So I can then show an icon when I press the A button, and I can show a different icon when I press the B button, just by dragging blocks from this palette onto the design surface. So let's choose that. And then on the left-hand side, we can press the A button and we get the heart icon I dragged on there, and we can press the B button and then we get a different icon. So this is great, but we can actually start taking this further. So if you imagine you wanted to create something like a robot arm that's using small motors called servos, then we can do that as well. And in fact, I've already created some code that does that for us. So over here, I've dragged on a block that controls a servo, and we can see at the bottom of the screen, we've got the servo just out of shot there. And in fact, if I drag this and drag that back, that should refresh that page for us. And there we are. And what I've done is when I press the A button, it'll move the servo one way, and press the B button, it'll move the servo the other way. So that's the servo at the bottom. And if I just hit the A button, we'll see the servo moves one way, and press B, and the servo moves back. So if you imagine, this is the rudimentaries of a robot arm being able to move up and down at this point. And that's a great way to get children and young adults, and even regular adults like you and I, into programming. We can move through languages as well. So instead of blocks, we can do Python, and we can also do JavaScript, and we can program this the exact same way. So you can use this as stepping stones throughout your IoT journey. Another great tool is something called TinkerCAD, and this is made by Autodesk, the same people that make AutoCAD. And you can drag components onto a design surface similar to what I'd done before. So we can drag a resistor, a battery, and an LED, and we can hook those things together. So connect all this lot up, and then we can start the simulation, and then we can see that our LED has turned on, which is exactly what we'd expect to see. What's great is that it even knows when you've done something slightly incorrect. So if I remove the current limiting resistor there, and then I run my simulation without it, we'll see we get a slightly different response. We get a starburst on the LED, and if I hover over it, it's telling us that it's using 915 milliamps instead of the 20. That's the maximum that the LED is going to be able to deal with. So what we've done here is prevent us from being able to see the magic smoke that comes out of devices like this if you plug them directly into batteries like that. We can go further with this though, and what's fantastic is that we can even drag full Arduino Unos onto the design surface. And then I can hook components directly up to that and then program them. But if you've ever done any Arduino programming, you'll know that that's likely done in C, and that's a difficult language for children and young adults to try and get used to. So what this allows us to do is we can program in blocks. So if I click blocks, we can see that we've got some code here already written. And in fact, what we can do is I can get rid of some of that, and then I can flash my LED just by sticking a set pin on there from the palette, and then we have a weight, and then likewise we have another set pin from the palette, and then a final weight. I've gone past it just there, and then set this to pin 7, which is where I've got this connected. There we are, and set that to low, and then we can start that simulation, and we can see the LED flash, which is great. But I've also got a servo on there, and I can control that as well. So back on output, if I scroll down a bit, we can rotate a servo pin, and I've got that connected to pin 6. Do the same again, because we want to rotate our servo 2 different ways. Drag that down here, pin 6, and then we want to go between 0 and 180 degrees, and I can run that, and then we can see that our servo is now moving. So again, using a simulated Arduino and a simulated servo, we're able to begin our journey with a robot arm. But all of this is the OT part of IoT, so IoT is Internet of Things, and I've not shown you the internet side. But Microsoft have given us a tool for that. So what we have here is a simulated Raspberry Pi and a temperature and humidity sensor. And we can create ourselves what's known as an Azure IoT Hub to be able to ingress events from our simulated device up into Azure and then have a look at them. The only thing you'll need is the connection string for the device. I won't dive too deep into that, but this is the device in my IoT Hub, and I copy the connection string and I paste that into this code and run it. And you can see at the bottom, we have messages being sent up to Azure, and we can intercept those messages here in this tool. And we can see we're getting those messages received from the IoT Hub. So it's been sent from the simulator to the Azure IoT Hub, and then we can intercept those messages using this tool on my laptop, and we can see the simulated temperature and humidity sensing readings. So we can see that we're able to get started with IoT with essentially nothing but your laptop here. It doesn't cost you anything. All of these tools are free. So by all means, do go check them out. So thank you very much for listening.